Aha. Good morning, ladies. Shavua Tov Mevorach. Hag Sameach to everyone. On today, the very special fifth day of Hanukkah, Erev Rosh Hodesh Tevet, Hava Aleinu Letovah. As we know, tonight we're going to be celebrating 2 days of Rosh Hodesh. Rosh Hodesh Tevet, the first and the sixth and the seventh day of Hanukkah is connected to the day of Rosh Hodesh. Thank you, Mrs. Levy, for the snacks and everything else on the table in honor of Hanukkah. And we say a hearty Mazel Tov to your niece, Lois Mabruk. On what? On her engagement. בסימן טוב, בשעה טובה מוצלחת, ירבו שמחות בישראל, amen. So today we're going to have a bit different of a class than the usual Monday Pirkei Avot, because I would like to take advantage of Hanukkah and Rosh Hodesh Tevet. I will tell you that when it comes to the celebration of Hanukkah and Rosh Hodesh Tevet is the merging of two powerful days that can bring a tremendous amount of salvation, thank you, and redemption individually and collectively. But before I go into the Rosh Hodesh mode, today we are still on the fifth day of Hanukkah. The fifth day of Hanukkah connects to the topic of Hoda'ah, the topic of gratitude, connected to Aharon HaKohen. As we know, the celebration of Hanukkah, in a way, is connected to the celebration of Aharon HaKohen. And the basic answer is that because Hanukkah is connected to the menorah, and the menorah was the daily service that the Kohen Gadol will do in the Bet HaMikdash, so by default, Hanukkah and Aharon HaKohen are like the team that enhances this particular holiday. So our rabbis tell us before we go to tonight Rosh Hodesh that on the day number 5 of Hanukkah, there are a couple of things that we should do. Even though we lit the candles yesterday, that doesn't mean that the beracha and the power of the day expired. The day continues till sunset, till 5:35 if you want to be exact. Till 5:35 you can do the following. Number one of the ideas of Aharon HaKohen is the way the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot tells us. The Mishnah writes in the beginning of chapter 1, Heve mitalmidav shel Aharon, that a person must emulate the students of Aharon HaKohen. What was the legacy of Aharon HaKohen? The legacy that Aharon HaKohen left behind? Number one, we need to know that Aharon HaKohen is the only person in the entire Torah that the Torah tells me what day did he pass away. No one else. Even Moshe Rabbeinu is not written openly when did he pass away. Abraham, Ishaq, Yaakov, Sara, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, Yosef, none of them, Mehila, none of them mentions when they left the world. One exception, Aharon HaKohen. 3 times the Torah tells me Aharon HaKohen passed away on the first day of the 5th month. That will be Rosh Hodesh Av. 9 days before Tisha B'Av, Aharon HaKohen passes away. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avot tells us, Heve mitalmidav shel Aharon. A person must emulate to become a student of Aharon HaKohen. Even though that you may say, why the students of Aharon and not the students of Moshe? Because Aharon HaKohen had a different type of personality than Moshe Rabbeinu, which, by the way, we all have different personalities. The Gemara writes there are 3 things that are different between each person: the way they look, the face, the way they sound, and the way they think, which brings also the behavior of the person, the midot of the person. Aaron HaKohen was, in a certain extent, the teacher of Shalom. Moshe Rabbeinu was a teacher, but the teacher many times disciplines, and that's why the learning of Torah is connected to Moshe Rabbeinu, which in a way represents the fifth night of Hanukkah, Hamisha Humshe Torah. Not only that, if we quote the Ben Ish Hai very quickly, the Ben Ish Hai writes that there were three particular prohibitions that the Greeks enacted against the Jewish people. Rashi Tevot, Hamesh, Hodesh, the prohibition of celebrating Rosh Hodesh. So what we're going to do tonight, in the time of the Greeks, was punishable by execution. Celebrating Rosh Hodesh. And we'll discuss it in a moment. The second one was Berit Milah. A baby is born, no Berit Milah. And the third one, not observing the Shabbat. Rashi Tevot, Hamesh, Hodesh, Milah, Shabbat. Representative to the fifth night of Hanukkah. 5 books of the Torah, 5 candles of Hanukkah. So based on that statement, so today, at this moment as we speak, there is an essence of Moshe Rabbeinu by the 5th candle and Aharon by the lineup of the Ushpizin. As we discussed during the weeks of the Omer or during the week of Sukkot, that every night we welcome different tzaddikim, Abraham, Ishaq, Yaakov, Moshe, Aharon. So in the 5th night of Hanukkah, we also welcome Aharon HaKohen. But Aharon HaKohen, besides being the master of teacher, the teacher of peace, I should say, and being a mega tzaddik, but the midah on a Kabbalistic form, there are different attributes which is representative of the tzaddikim. You know some of them. For example, Avraham Avinu represents Hesed, kindness. Ishaq Avinu represents discipline, Gevurah, even though many explain Gevurah as judgment, but Gevurah also means discipline that we all have. As Yehudim, we need to have some level of discipline. Then you have Yaakov, the topic of truth. The topic of Moshe, it's Nesach, is eternity and victory against the Yetzer Hara. And then we have the message of Aharon HaKohen, which in Sefirot terms, it's called Hod, with a He. What's the meaning of the word Hod? Hod has 2 meanings. The first meaning is something majestic, like a Kadosh Baruch Hu. In the daily mornings we say, Lecha Hashem, HaGedulah, VeHaGevurah, VeHaTiferet, VeHaNesach, VeHaHod. Hashem is majesty. Hashem is kingdom. That's the one meaning of the word Hod. But Hod also means Hoda'ah, gratitude. So it's written in the holy books that on the 5th day of Hanukkah, the person should devote a few moments of the day. I know somebody may have said, Rabbi, why didn't you say this last night? Because you were not here last night. I did say that in the Spanish class, though. I had an extra curriculum class last night via Mexico. So they gathered a few rabbis from South America and North America. I happen to be the U.S. representative. It sounds like I'm in Congress. But I was the only rabbi from America who spoke in Spanish. The rest of them went from Argentina, from Mexico. So, but it was a nice class, Baruch Hashem. At least that's what they said on the chat, Baruch Hashem. And I said it last night, that one of the things that a person should do on the 5th day of Hanukkah is to devote a few moments to be thankful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we have a guaranteed return policy. Usually when you say a guaranteed return, it means that something is coming your way. And the short answer is that the more thankful a person becomes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem reciprocates to the person with more reasons to be grateful. And God forbid the opposite is the same. If the person complains, and there are people who love to complain, they are those called in Arabic kvetchers. Because they kvetch, for those who understand. It's always a hedge, always a reason why to say something, or why to be negative, and why to be dark. Believe me, none of the above is beneficial to the person. So what rabbis tell us in today's day, the day of Aharon HaKohen, not only pursue the peace with your family, within yourself, that's an imperative. The peace within yourself is the catalyst for the domino effect of peace. Who says this? David HaMelech. King David writes in the book of Shmuel, Beata Shalom, Ubetecha Shalom, Bechol Asher Lecha Shalom. David HaMelech talks about like a domino effect. And it says, Beata Shalom. When you are in peace with yourself, tranquilo, calmado, Miami style, calm, relax. I'm not saying that other cities don't have it, but there is a reason why everybody comes here to Florida. Because Baruch Hashem, the weather, the environment, the multicultural tapestry that we have in our city makes it, Baruch Hashem, hopefully, a very calm place. So David HaMelech says, Ve'ata shalom. First, be in peace within yourself. Ubetecha shalom. And then with your household, your family, your relatives. And then the third benefit is Bechol asher lecha shalom. If there is peace within the person, and there is peace at home and in the family, so by default, peace will be always part of our vocabulary, part of our life. And this is the other thing that a person prays on today's day. You still have 12 hours before Rosh Hodesh. But I must say one more thing before we discuss Rosh Hodesh Tevet. These hours that we are now, at this moment, now is 11:20. 5:40, let's say, or 5:30 is sunset. We have 6 hours. You know how these 6 hours are called in Jewish law? Yom Kippur Katan. Yom Kippur Katan. A minuscule Yom Kippur. You know that there is a tradition when a Hatan and Kala are about to get married, especially the Hatan, the groom, he recites the Amidah of Erev Kippur. Why? Because when a Hatan and Kala get married, it's their own personal Yom Kippur. Hashem forgives them, and that's why you see often the Hatan and Kala, they close their eyes, they're shaking, they are praying, and some of them even cry under the chuppah. Why are you crying? They're not crying because they're getting married and say, Uli, I'm getting married. God forbid. Has v'shalom, don't get me wrong. The opposite, marriage is beautiful. But in the sense of, it's like the Yom Kippur, it's like the neshama is getting, you go to a car wash, they give you 17 options, and I want the supreme turtle wax, dry cloth, windows drying. Hamavdil. Erev, the Hatuna, the moment under the Chuppah, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, God, gift to the Hatan and Kala is what? Forgiveness. You come into a wedding, most people don't go empty-handed. You bring something, or you go to a registry, or you send them a gift, whatever it may be. HaKadosh Baruch Hu also gives a gift to the Hatan and Kala. How is this gift called? Forgiveness. I forgive you. I'm going to press the delete button. I'm going to give you now a new identity. Because from birth till the chuppah, you were in training, so to speak. Your neshama wasn't even fully developed, nor by the hatan, nor by the kala. So when the neshama really becomes activated, the moment that they are under the chuppah and hatan and kala get married, this is when the neshama really has the full charge of their essence. Before the marriage, they were 50% performance. That's the reason that hour or those hours before the chuppah is called Yom Kippur for the Hatan and the Kala. And not only that, in some communities, there is ta'anit involved. They fast before the wedding. Maybe the bride does not, for obvious reasons, but Hatan Of course, he goes to the mikveh, he reads the Hilim. It's not a day to be wasted because that is your personal day of Kippur. This is Hatan and Kala. Guess what? Every Jewish person on a day like today, as we speak, is considered Yom Kippur Katan, with one difference. That today, when I mean today, means this Rosh Hodesh, we don't fast because it's Hanukkah. Hanukkah, you're not allowed to fast. But a month ago, there was fasting in many circles all over the world. And if there is a minyan of people, they even bring out the Sefer Torah. If they have people fasting, I must clarify for the audience, I don't think that ladies do fast on Yom Kippur Katan, but don't forget the fact that Rosh Hodesh is God gives to the Jewish women. And every Rosh Hodesh, ladies have this holiday called Rosh Hodesh. And the reason why that is God gives to the Jewish women, because as the Torah tells us in Perashat Kitisa, when it came to the famous story of the Egel, of the sin of the golden calf, the only participants were men of the Jewish nation. Ladies refused to participate, and therefore Hashem gave the Jewish women the gift of Rosh Hodesh, that every month there is a day that they celebrate. And that's the reason why in many communities, in many places, ladies do organize a Rosh Hodesh event, or Rosh Hodesh outing, or couples go out, or families go out, because Rosh Hodesh carries in a way a miniature essence of Yom Tov, of a mini holiday. Now, the Greeks understood this. The Greeks understood that if we are able to remove Rosh Hodesh from the observance of the Jewish people, not having Milah, not having Shabbat, not eating kasher, not learning Torah, no mikveh for the ladies, no milah for the babies, and all other prohibitions that they establish, let's put also on the list Rosh Hodesh. So I ask you a question. Why does a Greek curse about Rosh Hodesh? I understand, but pick another commandment. Why Rosh Hodesh? Short answer, 1 second. I'm recording live, so I'm asking myself. Thank you. Thank you. You know why they care about Rosh Hodesh? Because every Rosh Hodesh is an opportunity to turn the page and to start new. And that's why it's called Yom Kippur Katan. These hours of Erev Rosh Hodesh, it's a Yom Kippur, my personal Yom Kippur. I can do something about it and say, you know what? I'm turning the page, I'm starting a new chapter in my life, and chalas. Or it can be just another day in the calendar, and they say in Yiddish, nishtahin or nishtaher. Did not make a difference. Rosh Hodesh, no Rosh Hodesh, yes Rosh Hodesh, you don't care, nothing happens. But a Yehudi who takes into heart, and that's why it's called Rosh Hodesh. Why it's called Rosh Hodesh is Hadash. The word Hodesh, although we call it month, Yom is day, Shavua means week, Shana is year, Rosh Hodesh is like Rosh Hashanah in a smaller scale. Rosh Hashanah influences the entire year, Rosh Hodesh influences the entire month. So both of them have the word Rosh, meaning to say head. So instead of calling it Rosh Hodesh, we call it Rosh Hadash. Now I resetted my brain. Now I know whatever happened the past month, kapara. Now I'm starting a new chapter. Imagine yourself like the government occasionally, they give amnesty. There is such a thing, right? Amnesty. Sometimes people have tickets they haven't paid in a while, and they accumulated the tickets, and God forbid, maybe the license may have been suspended, or other matter of finances, and there is such a governmental rule that's called amnesty. Amnesty basically means, okay, do something about it, and we clear the account, and you move on with a new chapter. Hamavdil ben Kodesh lechol, that is what Rosh Hodesh is. So therefore, the hours prior to Rosh Hodesh is warming up our neshama to understand, oh wow, I'm having a new opportunity, like in the night of Rosh Hashanah. In the night of Rosh Hashanah, in the Sephardic Mahzor at least, there is a famous prayer known by Ahot Ketana. And at the end of that prayer, there is a statement that says, Tichle Shana Bekileloteha, Tahel Shana Ubirkoteha. Let the year with the curses come to an end, let the new year begin. And one of the questions is being asked, why do I need to bring the word curse on the prayer? We don't curse. We usually say blessings. But in this prayer, we add the word curse and blessing. So I heard once that this particular sentence means as follows, that many times a person goes through challenging or difficult situations in life, and maybe the year came in yesterday. Let's make believe that tonight is Rosh Hashanah. It is only an example. Tonight is Rosh Hashanah. So when tonight sunset come, I say to the year that passed goodbye, and I'm getting ready to welcome the new year. But guess what? The headaches and the challenges that a person goes through life, many times they have side effects like a medicine. How many times you go to the pharmacy, you pick up a prescription? If you will read the prescription packet, guaranteed most of us will not take the medicines. It says warning, palpitations, schizophrenia, paranoia, suicide, heart attack, sudden death. You think I'm kidding? Read it, go home. I hope nobody takes medicines. I hope nobody takes medicine, but if you need to take, read the pamphlet, what it says. You say, Ribono shel Olam, I'm better off not taking it than taking it. By the way, I respectfully say what I say to the men's department. Don't derive practical lessons of health, of investments, of medicines from these classes. You follow your doctor, you follow your business advisor, your wealth management accountant, whatever you deal with. I can tell you things from professional experience, personal experience, what I feel, what I see, and obviously including the speaker. Not because I'm reading the pamphlet, I'm not going to take the medicine, because obviously, even in the halakha, when you need to make sometimes medical decisions, whatever it may be, sometimes questions do come up, God forbid, in the final stage of life. What do you do? Can you do this? Or maybe doing it can precipitate demise. So sometimes you need to know what to do. Believe me, I don't know what to do, but I do know one thing, that if God forbid I'm facing this type of questions, I thought Mashiach was, I think it was Mashiach for a second. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam She'akol Nihya B'dbaro. If God forbid somebody ever is facing this type of halachic question, the end of life, there are protocols to follow. For example, one thing that is never compromised is oxygen, fluid, feeding the person. These are matters that cannot be removed. Because if God forbid the person has no oxygen, I'm not talking about intubation, I'm talking about oxygen and fluids and food. So God forbid, slowly we're getting rid of the person. But when it comes to matters which are more invasive, this is what we need to call the hachamim, which are especially trained in this type of questions, and that's usually the way we do. And as a rabbi who regretfully doesn't do only weddings, I deal with matters which are not to the public's eye or popular, but often we are facing these type of questions. What do I do in a case like this, on a case like that? And guess what? The halakha writes, less is more. Shev ve'al ta'aseh adif. In some matters, Not doing it is better, because sometimes doing could become so invasive to the person that, God forbid, you may precipitate something worse. That's why there is a wonderful, wonderful program. I hope you never need to call them, but it's called Haim Aruchim. That it's out of Brooklyn, and they have many rabbis and doctors from the communities that they are there 24/7, literally, to answer and to analyze, and many times they get involved with the doctors to have a better understanding of to make the halachic decision, obviously having the benefit and the well-being of the patient, but also staying within the parameters of halakha. Now, with all that being said, so now we understand in part why the Greeks, they didn't like Rosh Hodesh, because the Greeks understood. We need to understand one thing about the Greeks. The Greeks had a debate against the Jewish people. And the debate was, what's more important, the external or the internal? That was the debate between them. The Torah says the outside, it's temporary. You know, how many times you have an actor or an actress or a singer or on an athlete that they achieve great sportsmanship, success, but in reality, as humans, are nothing. Are nothing. You know, I remember many, many years ago, there was some type of incident that a group of sportsmen representing the United States, I don't know which country they were at, and they acted in ways which are unacceptable for humanity. And one fellow asked, I don't understand. They broke this record, and they have the gold medal and they have the silver medal, they are on top of the state. So I said to them, that only tells us the skills in the fields of sports. Doesn't tell me how good of a person is he. In Torah is completely the opposite. David HaMelech, for example, in the Havdalah we say, Umsahem besechel tov be'anei Elokim be'adam. David HaMelech says, I don't want to be good with God only. I want to be good with God and with people. Like the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says, how do I know if God likes me? Did you ever ask yourself this question? Does God likes me or not? How do you know? What parameter do you use to determine God likes me or God doesn't really like me? I believe that God likes everyone. But the Mishnah asked this question. So if the Mishnah asked this question, so I think that the Mishnah is going to tell us now that the level of godliness, or rather I should say, the level of the human relationships that we have can also determine our godly relationship. Where do we learn it from? From the Mishnah. כל שרוח הבריות נוחה המנו, רוח המקום נוחה המנו. The Mishnah says, if you have a good relationship, a good interaction with people, that means that people don't avoid you. People like you. People interact with you. That is an excellent sign. But if there is a person that people say, forget about it, I see this person across the street, or I don't talk to the person, may bite you. There are people like that. There are people that have a short fuse. You know of these people? They have a short fuse. You know what that means? Nobody knows what that means? Hazaku Baruch. That means the person that you say to them, good morning, and they ask you, what's good about it? I knew someone like that. God forbid. Sure. It's scary. I don't want to be in their shoes. Of course, scary. But that the Mishnah says, if you have a good name among the people, so Hashem also gravitates to you in that way. With all that being said, as we're moving now into the sixth night of Hanukkah, the sixth night of Hanukkah connects to someone connected to each and every one of us. the one and only Yosef HaSadik. Now, Yosef, the story of Yosef and the story of Hanukkah always happens during the same weeks. It's impossible that we're going to be celebrating Hanukkah and we do not have a perashah that talks about Yosef. Look at the perashiot. Perashah Vayeshev, Yosef. Perashat Miketz, Yosef. Perashah Vayigash, Yosef. Perashah Vayichi, Yosef and his brothers. Now, Yosef and the story of Hanukkah, both of them were basically the same concept. The Jewish people were at the threat of annihilation, not through the body like it was in Purim, but through the spirit. Basically, one of the biggest challenges that the Hashmonaim needed to overcome prior to the miracle of Hanukkah, it wasn't only defeating the enemies of the Jewish people, but also the large amount of people that assimilated and gravitated to the ideals of the Greeks. That was the challenge of Hanukkah. In a different scale, but on the same concept. Can you imagine Yosef Sadiq in Egypt by himself without any kind of support? No synagogue, no habruta, no kolel, no knis, nothing. One Jew in Egypt, obviously except his wife and Ephraim and Menachem, but basically one single family unit. But what happened from the moment that Yosef was sold until Yosef HaSadik marries? Many years went by. Yosef HaSadik could have married any Goya in Egypt. And yet he survived. Rabbeinu Ari writes, you know how Yosef HaSadik survived? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu took a fragment of the neshama of Ishak Avinu and injected it into the neshama of Yosef. Because Ishak Avinu, alav shalom, even though we always connect Ishak with Devora, Devora is loosely translated as strength, as the attribute of judgment. And to many people, the attribute of judgment is scary. True, it's scary for everybody. I rather compassion than judgment. Compassion means even though my behavior is not good, I still get an A. Justice means I get what I deserve. Sometimes I may deserve good, sometimes I may deserve a wake-up call. But there is an element of Ishak Avinu that we all need to have. You know why? Because if we will not have that DNA of Ishak Avinu, we will not be here today. We'll be on the street. Will be one more citizen of the world. We will not be able to remain as Yehudim. You know, when we said in the Haggadah of Pesach, שבכל דור ודור עומדים עלינו לכלותנו, that in every generation there are enemies who seek our destruction. What type of enemy is the Haggadah talking? There are two types of enemy against the Jewish people. Sometimes the enemy is visible, like anti-Semitism, terrorism, Inquisition, the Crusades, the pogroms, the communism. All these isms are all connected of seeking the destruction of the Jewish people in a physical way. But there is a silent enemy, like the rabbis call it this nowadays, the silent Holocaust, which is what? The assimilation. And assimilation wants to achieve that one Jew at a time start disappearing. And God forbid, you turn around, you lost a family. You lost a family. It's not only the family. It's the current generation plus all the potential Yehudim that could have come from that particular Jewish family. So it says that if we don't have that attribute of Ishak Avinu, each and every one of us without exception, we will not be here today. We will be, as I said before, another number in the world. And Rabbeinu Ari says, so if this is what is applicable to us, imagine yourself Yosef Sadiq. Even though we have different levels of observance, different levels of spirituality, whatever you want to call it. But guess what? We have the synagogue, we have the community, we have the hachamim, we have the kosher food, we have the kosher restaurants, we have our traditions, and somehow everybody fits into the same picture of Am Israel. But imagine yourself, Yosef. You are a teenager. You are 17 years old. You were taken from the holy environment of Yaakov Avinu with his wives and children, and suddenly you are put into the lion's den. They put you in South Beach to live. South Beach is Mea She'arim compared to Egypt. Just for you to understand the level of tum'ah, of impurity, thank you, that was floating through the air in Egypt. So the survival of Yosef, it wasn't a small achievement. Guess what? One of our names is Yosefim. My name happens to be Yosef. Okay? But what happened? Somebody's name is not Yosef, it's Abraham. Or somebody's name Esther. Or somebody's name is Sara. So how does the Yosefim fit into your neshama? It's actually a pasuk in the book of Tehillim. Bnei Yaakov be Yosef Sela. It says, we carry the essence of Yosef. What is the essence of Yosef besides the name? It's not different on the gender. It's the essence of survival for our spiritual growth. We all have our challenges. And the challenges, the books of Musar tells us, the way the Gemara writes, Isro shel Adam mitgaber kol yom bayom. It says the challenges that we overcome in our life, they are custom made. For somebody, coming to a class is beautiful. For somebody, getting up early is easy. And for somebody to give charity is easier than praying. And to somebody it's easier to say berachot than doing the tefillah, one tefillah per day. So bottom line, every challenge that we have is custom made for who we are. So tonight's prayer, when we light the candles of Hanukkah, is connected to the essence of Yosef Hasadik. That a person prays, that a Kadosh Baruch Hu gives us the strength to overcome our inner challenges. And that's why I said before, when I quoted the prayer of Rosh Hashanah, when we say to Akadosh Baruch Hu, Tichle Shana vekileloteha, I'm telling God, God, do me a favor. I don't want you only to remove the headache. I want you also to remove all the side effects and the emotional the down and the pain that I endure for going through that challenge, and I want a complete reset. Tahel Shana ubirkoteha. Let the new year begin with all of the blessings that the year brings in storage for us. Additionally, there is another concept in the night of Hanukkah, connected to the sixth night of Hanukkah, that is to pray for refuah, to pray for healing. And Baruch Hashem, if you don't have nothing to do in your life in the sense of Baruch Hashem, your health, everything is fine, I'm sure that we may have a relative or a friend or a spouse or a parent or a child. I mean, believe me, there is always needs to pray for refuah shelema. We learn this from the morning prayers. There is a prayer that says, Bore refuot. Bore Olam creates the healing. So therefore it says, tonight when you pray, pray for two types of healings. The physical healing, refuat nefesh, or refuat haguf. Not only pray for your physical well-being, but also pray for the well-being of our neshama. Because at the end of the day, like the body has its own ups and downs and situations and challenges, our neshama also. Perhaps we don't see it the same way because the neshama is something more abstract than tangible like the human body. But remember the mistakes of the Greeks. The Greeks believe the body is the main thing. The external is the main thing. That's the reason why, I'm sorry to say this, but they were against the Berit Milah. That's it. I don't have to go any further. But that was one of the reasons. Because Berit Milah means the removal of the skin. Or they were against impure. They were against a wife going to the mikveh. They say, why a lady needs to go to the mikveh? Take a shower. But they don't understand that the mikveh is spiritual. And other rules and regulations that they enacted concerning marriage and other matters which are public knowledge and history. But it says that also the Yehudi is not the goof, is the neshama. Like they asked one time, Alav Shalom, there was a great rabbi in Brooklyn by the name of Rabbi Zecharia Wallerstein, Alav Shalom. I'm sure you heard of him, from Or Nava, a master in Kiruv. And believe me, the cases that he had to handle to do outreach, to bring neshamot, I'm sorry to say what I'm going to say now, from the sewer of spirituality. Yani people that were addictions and all kinds. I don't want to go more, but you understand when I say the word addictions, it's all inclusive. Could be alcohol, could be drugs, other matters. And they ask him, how do you handle it? How do you handle it that you deal with these cases? You know what he said so beautifully, and it says, I don't look at the body, I look at the neshama. And once we look at the neshama, the whole story changes. Okay, the neshama needs polishing. Okay, what do you think? My neshama doesn't need polishing? Everybody's neshama needs polishing. Big deal. But at least we have what to work with. The Greek says, I don't care about the neshama. I care only about the external looks. That's why the Greeks established the Olympic Games, for example. And they had idols for the body, and idols for the money, and idols for marriage that perhaps society of today doesn't perhaps pays too much attention to that, because you drive on the street, you see a billboard, you see the social media, you see all these type of matters that they try somehow to penetrate and influence our life, but they showing us a mirage. They don't show us the true essence of what a person needs to be. And this was the war of Hanukkah. The war of Hanukkah was the mundane, the physical versus the spiritual. Like the Baal Shem Tov says very clearly, the mission of a Jew in this world is to take the physical and make it spiritual. How do you do that? Very simple. It may sound more complicated than what really is. But if a Yehudi brings godliness into the life, and when I mean godliness, not only means emunah and gratitude to Akadosh Baruch Hu, that is obviously non-negotiable, but also the practical aspect of it. For example, you have a cup of water, and before you drink it, you say a beracha, you lifted the cup of water into something physical, because millions of people drink water, but how many of them say beracha? Or a person has money, and you give some of your money into tzedakah, or you have a nice garment and you buy it in honor of Shabbat, in honor of the holiday, or you cook and you make sure, okay, this is meat, this is dairy, I need to separate it. If I'm going to have a dairy dessert, the food needs to be dairy or parv, even though this is something that we do automatically. But this is how a Jew can turn something so physical. Let's say a person wants to redo their kitchen. Very common statement. A person wants to redo their kitchen. You can just redo the kitchen, go to Mia Cucina, whatever they have there next to Winn-Dixie, Alav Shalom. Now it's becoming Aldi, I heard. Right? Alav Shalom. Okay, you can make a dish or ashkava, I don't know what. But it's true. Okay, you go there to buy cabinets. They didn't pay any promotional fee, actually. Okay, but whatever. Okay? You can tell, I want a kitchen, and that's the end of your statement. Or you say, I want a kosher kitchen. It's a different story. Once you say a kosher kitchen, that means you want to have a separate sink, you want to have double oven, although many things are halachically permissible, but many of us, including the speaker, when we needed to do the kitchen in our home, I told the contractor, I want a kosher kitchen, meaning two separate ovens, two separate sinks. Call me Meshugane. Okay, I'd rather be called Meshugane for going the extra mile and buying an extra sink than just not observing the laws of kashrut in the proper way. Obviously, as long as whatever you do, you have rabbinical guidance and allowance, is beautiful. But look at the difference. Regular kitchen, kosher kitchen. Separate dishes for meat, separate dishes for dairy. You may say, but Rabbi, if it's glass, you can mix it. Of course you can mix. But why do I need to mix if for a few extra dollars I can have spiritual peace of mind? You know what the Zohar Kadosh writes? And I'm sorry to bring the topic of kashrut, but you know what the Zohar Kadosh writes? That when it came to the destruction of the first Bet HaMikdash, and Nebuchadnezzar took thousands of young boys and young girls from Israel to Babylon to Iraq, they were not forced to do nothing forbidden. They were not forced to become slaves. They actually had in the beginning a very easygoing life, with one exception, that the food fed was taref, meat and dairy mix. And Nebuchadnezzar says, if I'm going to try now to force them to do sins, they may say no. But if I feed them non kosher food, sooner or later I capture the neshama, I'm reprogramming their soul, and once the neshama it's under the auspices, let's call it, of non kosher food, the spiritual downfall is like a domino effect. That's why when we talk about the loss of kashrut, for example, is something that not only affects the body of the person, which is a given, but is also something that affects the neshama of the person. And once the neshama, God forbid, is clogged with non-kosher food, the person needs to go to rehab. True. You need to rehab the person. Sometimes the lack of consumption of kosher food affects the mind of the person. When I mean the mind, I mean in a spiritual angle. And by the way, one of the decrees of the Hashmonaim was against kosher food, because they understood the pasuk in the Torah. The pasuk in the Torah says, you eat non-kosher, it affects your brain. It affects your heart. Forget about the physical aspect. You don't want to know how much it hurts physically, the consumption of non-kosher food with the blood and sicknesses of the animal, etc. According to the Torah, the opposite. If the animal has an illness, it's out. If the animal has blood, meaning the piece of meat has leftover blood, you cannot eat it. Why not? Ki adam hu hanafesh. Because the blood is the living cell of the person, or in this case, of the animal. So if a person eats a piece of meat that the blood has been removed by the kashering process known as meliha, which today, Baruch Hashem, I like to believe that we all buy already meat from a reliable source, that the meat has been kasherized before it reaches the counter. But remember one generation ago, or maybe two generations ago, that our parents needed to buy the chicken, the meat, and kasherize it at home, right? How much effort that required? Today, you take a newlywed couple and you ask them, can you kasherize the meat? What they do, they call Jerusalem Glad. That's all they do. Or whatever store, Sarah Stand, whatever store you buy the meat from. But the Greeks understood this. And Nebuchadnezzar, that's what the Zohar Kadosh writes, that Nebuchadnezzar fed the young boys and girls non-kosher food. Basar behalav. Meat and dairy together, even though they may have been kosher. Imagine yourself, they go to the kitchen of the palace of Nebuchadnezzar. What meat do you have? Oh, Bet Yosef, halak Bet Yosef. Nice. What dairy you have? No, we use halab Israel. Oh, whoa, I went to the kitchen, halak Bet Yosef, halab Israel. Beautiful. But they failed to tell them that they cook them together. And once the meat and dairy is cooked together, it doesn't matter that Moshe Rabbeinu supervised the meat. Once they are mixed, they became tarif. That's what the Zohar Kadosh writes. That was the tactic of Nebuchadnezzar to remove the holiness of the young members of Am Israel by the consumption of non-kosher food. And the same thing in the celebration of Hanukkah. So Be'ezat Hashem, let us hope and pray that with the arrival of Rosh Hodesh Tevet, Ava Aleinu Letovah, that everybody takes advantage of the final 2 and 3 days actually pending for Hanukkah. Our rabbis tell us especially the power of the final night and day of Hanukkah, also known as Zot Hanukkah, that is basically the gathering of all of the energy and all of the prayers and all of the blessings of the holidays. They boil down to the last day of Hanukkah, and so powerful is this upcoming, I think it's Wednesday night, Thursday, that has the power to update the decree given to us in Ne'ilah of Yom Kippur. Ano Sha'ana Rabbah. Just take advantage of it. There's nothing different that you need to do, but take advantage to pray, take advantage to ask, take advantage to do some good, to take some good actions. And Be'ezat Hashem, let us hope and pray that very, very soon we'll have the zechut of the Geulah Shelema with the building of the third and final Beit HaMikdash. B'mehera v'yameinu, amen. Shavua Tov, Chodesh Tov, and Chag Sameach to everyone.